Aisha stood at the highest point of her estate, overlooking the vast empire she had built. What once belonged to Rahman was now truly hers, not just in name but in power. She had fought battles, faced betrayals, and risen above expectations. No longer the helpless girl who had cried on her wedding night. She was now a woman in control of her own fate. Everywhere she went, people respected her, not because she was Raymond's widow, but because she had proven herself. The businesses were thriving, the estate was stronger than ever, and for the first time, Aisha allowed herself to believe she had won. Yet peace was fleeting. Despite her success, an emptiness lingered within her. The world saw her as powerful, but inside, she wondered if she had merely replaced one set of chains with another. The constant fight to maintain control left little room for anything else, especially love. Rayyan had been patient, standing by her side, never forcing her to choose. But Aisha knew that at some point, she would have to face the question she had been avoiding. Was there space in her life for love again? Before she could answer that, a new problem emerged. A letter arrived, marked with a name she had never seen before. Inside, the words were few but chilling. You may think you have won, but Rayman's story is far from over. There are things you do not know, and I am coming to tell you the truth. Aisha's hands tightened around the paper. She had spent so long building her own future. Why did the past refuse to let her go? The letter had been just the beginning. Days later, a man arrived at the estate. Tall, imposing, with sharp eyes that carried the weight of history. He introduced himself as Zayan Malik, a name Aisha had never heard before. Yet the moment he spoke, it was clear. He knew things about Rahman that no outsider should. I was his closest friend once, Zayan said, his voice calm but heavy with unspoken truths. Before everything changed. Aisha studied him, wary. Over the years, many had come claiming ties to Rahman, seeking wealth, favors, or influence. But something about Zayan felt different. He wasn't here to ask for anything. He was here to reveal something. He placed an old leather-bound notebook on the table between them. Rahman kept secrets, Aisha, more than you know, and some of them are about to catch up with you. Her pulse quickened. Rahman had always been a man of mystery, but she had believed she had uncovered most of his hidden past. Now, doubt crept in again. She hesitated before opening the notebook, its pages filled with Raymond's handwriting. As she read, her breath caught in her throat. There were letters, records, even confessions, pieces of a life she had never seen before. A secret partnership with dangerous men, a deal left unfinished, a betrayal so deep it had cost someone their life. And now, it seemed, someone wanted revenge. Aisha looked up at Zayan, her mind racing. Why are you telling me this now? He exhaled, leaning forward. Because you're the only one left to deal with it. And if you don't, everything you've built, including your life, could be destroyed. The ground beneath Aisha's feet felt unsteady. Just when she thought she had conquered the past, it was back to haunt her in ways she never imagined. The weight of Zayan's revelations was still settling in when the first signs of betrayal appeared. It started with missing documents, important financial records from Raymond's businesses. Then, deals she had carefully negotiated began falling apart without explanation. Investors pulled back, citing concerns she had never heard before. At first, Aisha thought it was an external attack, perhaps connected to Raymond's past. But as she dug deeper, the truth became far worse. Someone from inside her circle was working against her. Her mind raced through the possibilities. Could it be one of the estate's advisors, a long-time employee, or someone even closer? Her worst fears were confirmed when she received an anonymous tip. One of her most trusted allies had been secretly meeting with a powerful rival. Determined to uncover the truth, Aisha set a trap. She arranged a private deal, one only a handful of people knew about. Within days, the confidential details had leaked, and that's when she discovered the traitor. It was Hassan, Raymond's former business partner, someone she had trusted to help manage the empire. He had been working behind her back, forging alliances with enemies who wanted to dismantle everything she had built. Confronting him was harder than she expected. Hassan had once been like family, guiding her after Raymond's death. Now he stood before her, unapologetic. "You were never meant to hold this power, Aisha," he said coldly. "You should have walked away while you had the chance." His words cut deep. Had everyone always seen her as an outsider, just Raymond's widow playing at leadership? Anger surged within her, but she refused to let it consume her. She had come too far to crumble now. "This empire is mine," she said firmly, "and I will never let a snake like you take it from me." But even as she removed Hassan from her inner circle, the damage had been done. Trust was shattered, and Aisha was left wondering who else might be waiting to betray her. Aisha refused to be blindsided again. If there was one lesson she had learned, it was that power belonged to those who fought for it. With Hassan gone, she wasted no time in launching her own investigation. She combed through financial records, legal contracts, and business dealings, determined to uncover the full extent of the betrayal. What she found was worse than she had imagined. Hidden within Raymond's old business transactions were irregularities, money funneled into offshore accounts, secret deals with dangerous figures, and forged documents that could bring down everything she had built. And at the center of it all was a powerful network of corrupt officials and businessmen who had been using Raymond's empire for their own gain. Aisha realized this wasn't just about her inheritance. This was a conspiracy much bigger than she had anticipated. If she exposed it, she wouldn't just be making enemies in the business world. She would be going against men who would do anything to keep their secrets buried. Zayan, who had been quietly assisting her, warned her of the risks. "These people don't play fair, Aisha. They won't hesitate to destroy you if you get in their way." She knew he was right. For the first time, she hesitated. Was it worth the danger? Should she protect herself and walk away, or should she fight back no matter the cost? Aisha thought of everything she had endured, being forced into marriage, losing Raymond, fighting for respect in a world that never wanted her to lead. She had never backed down before. Why should she now? She wouldn't run. Instead, she made her decision. She gathered the evidence, prepared her case, and called for a press conference. If these men thought they could silence her, they were wrong. But just as she was about to go public, a message arrived. A warning. "If you expose us, you won't live to see the consequences." Aisha stared at the words, her hands tightening around the paper. She had chosen to fight. Now, she had to be ready for war. Aisha sat across from Zayn in the dimly lit study, her mind racing. The weight of the documents in front of her felt heavier than anything she had ever carried. The evidence of corruption, hidden betrayals, and secret dealings was undeniable. But what shocked her most was what Zayan said next. "You don't have to fight them," he said calmly. "You can join them." Aisha's breath caught in her throat. Zayan slid a contract toward her. "This is an offer from the people you're trying to expose," he continued. They know you're dangerous, Aisha. They know you're too powerful to silence. So instead of fighting you, they want to bring you into their world. Her hands clenched into fists. You're saying they want me to become one of them? Zion nodded. If you agree, they'll give you access to power beyond anything you've imagined. Influence, wealth, control, on a level even Rema never had. But if you refuse, they will destroy you. Aisha stared at the contract. It was a tempting offer. If she agreed, she wouldn't have to constantly fight to keep her empire. She could solidify her position, expand her power and become untouchable. No more betrayals, no more threats. But at what cost? If she accepted, she would be just like the men she had despised, those who thrived on corruption and greed. Everything she had fought for, everything she had built, would be tainted. She thought of Rayman. Had he been offered a similar deal once? Had he taken it? Was that why his past had been filled with secrets? Zion leaned forward, watching her closely. This is the moment that defines you, Aisha. Do you take the easy path and secure your power? Or do you keep fighting and risk losing everything? Her heart pounded. The decision she made today wouldn't just shape her future, it would determine who she truly was. Power, or principles, security, or integrity. She closed her eyes for a brief moment, then looked up at Zion, her expression unreadable. I've made my decision. Aisha had spent so long building walls around her heart that she almost forgot what it felt like to let someone in. Ryan had been patient, never pushing, never demanding. He was just there, offering quiet support through every battle she fought. But lately, she found herself looking at him differently. Not just as an ally, but as something more, and that terrified her. Love had never been simple for her. Her first marriage had been forced upon her, a decision made out of duty rather than choice. Over time, she had learned to love Rayman, but it had been a slow, unexpected process. Now, with Ryan, it was different. There was no obligation, no hidden agenda, just a man who saw her for who she was, not for what she had inherited. But was she ready? She had fought too hard to stand on her own, to prove that she didn't need anyone. Would love make her stronger, or would it be her greatest weakness? One evening, as they stood on the estate balcony, overlooking the vast land she had fought so hard to protect, Rayan finally spoke the words she had been avoiding. Aisha, what are we? Her heart pounded. She turned to face him, searching for an answer. I don't know, she admitted. I don't even know if I'm capable of loving again. Ryan sighed, but there was no frustration in his eyes, only understanding. You don't have to have all the answers now. Just tell me this. Do you feel something? She did. She felt it in the way her breath caught when he was near, in the way she sought his presence, even when she told herself she didn't need anyone. But love meant vulnerability, and vulnerability meant risk. Aisha turned away, staring into the distance. I've lost too much already, Ryan. He nodded. And yet, you've survived it all. Maybe love isn't about losing. Maybe it's about finding something worth holding on to. His words stayed with her long after he left. For the first time in a long time, Aisha wasn't fighting a battle for power or survival. She was fighting a war within herself, between the woman who had learned to stand alone and the one who longed to share her strength with someone else. The question wasn't whether she could love again. It was whether she was brave enough to try. Aisha had thought the storm had passed. She had removed the traitors from her circle, uncovered the corruption, and stood her ground against those who wanted to see her fall. But power was never secured with just one victory. There were always those waiting in the shadows, ready to strike when she least expected it. And this time, they struck where it hurt most. It started with whispers, rumors spreading like wildfire that Aisha had obtained her empire through deceit. News outlets published fabricated stories about her business dealings, claiming she was involved in illegal activities. Investors grew uneasy, contracts were suddenly put on hold, and board members who once stood by her began questioning her leadership. Then came the direct attacks. A shipment from one of her key businesses was sabotaged, costing her millions. Government officials launched an unexpected audit, freezing her assets while they conducted their so-called investigation. Employees who had worked under her for years resigned without warning, lured away by competitors offering them double their salaries. Someone was orchestrating this, someone powerful. Zion had warned her that if she didn't take the deal, there would be consequences. Was this their retaliation? Or was this an entirely new enemy? One who had been waiting for her to let her guard down. Aisha refused to panic. She had fought too hard to crumble now. She gathered her remaining allies, Rayan, her trusted legal team, and the few business partners who hadn't abandoned her. "Whoever is behind this wants to break me," she told them. "They think if they take my reputation, my power will fall apart." Rayan studied her carefully. "Then we hit back harder." She nodded. This wasn't just about business, it was about survival. But as they strategized their counterattack, another blow landed. Aisha received a message. No threats, no demands, just a chilling sentence that sent shivers down her spine. "Your power is temporary. Your life is not untouchable." This wasn't just about her empire anymore. Now, it was personal. Aisha stood at the crossroads of her fate, knowing that whatever choice she made would define the rest of her life. Everything she had fought for, Raymond's legacy, her own empire, the love she had unexpectedly found, was now at risk. The enemies she thought she had defeated had returned stronger, more ruthless, and more determined to see her fall. She had been given an ultimatum: walk away from everything and disappear, or stay and watch her world burn. The weight of it all was suffocating. She could take the easy way out, sign over her businesses, disappear into the shadows, and live a quiet life far away from all this chaos. But was that really freedom, or just another form of defeat? Then there was Rayan. He had stood by her through every battle, never asking for anything in return. He had shown her that love didn't have to be a cage, that it could be strength. But love also made her vulnerable. If she chose him, if she let her guard down completely, would she be risking everything once again? And then there was power. The empire she had built, the respect she had fought so hard to earn. Was she really willing to let it go? If she stayed, if she fought, she knew she would have to cross lines she had once sworn she never would. Could she live with that? Could she become the kind of person she had once feared becoming? The ghosts of her past whispered warnings. The weight of the present pressed down on her shoulders. The uncertainty of the future loomed over her like a storm. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and made her decision. There was no turning back now. Aisha had spent years fighting battles, against fate, against enemies, against the expectations that others had placed upon her. But now, she wasn't just fighting to survive. She was fighting to win. The attacks on her empire had escalated. Her businesses were under scrutiny, her reputation tarnished, and the enemies she had once thought defeated were circling like vultures. But they had underestimated her. They thought she would crumble under pressure, that she would walk away in fear. They were wrong. Aisha was no longer the frightened girl who had once cried on her wedding night. She had risen from every betrayal, every loss, and every challenge stronger than before. And this time, she would not just defend, she would destroy those who had dared to come for her. She spent days carefully gathering her resources, calling in every favor, securing every ally she had left. Information was power, and she made sure she had more of it than her enemies. She traced the attacks back to their source, uncovering names she hadn't expected. Some of the very people who had once stood beside her were now working against her. It hurt, but she had no time for emotions. Instead of confronting them outright, she laid a trap. Through strategic leaks, she fed false information, making her enemies believe she was preparing to flee. She let them think they had won, that she was giving up. And as they moved to take the final blow, she struck first. One by one, their secrets unraveled. Illegal transactions, hidden alliances, every dark deal they had ever made, she exposed them all. The same media that had tried to destroy her now had a new target. Her enemies found themselves under investigation, their assets frozen, their reputations shattered. Some tried to bargain with her, to beg for forgiveness. But Aisha had learned that mercy had no place in a world like this. She watched as those who had betrayed her fell, not with anger, but with a sense of finality. They had chosen their fate. Now, they had to live with it. With her enemies defeated, Aisha turned inward. For too long, she had lived in the shadows of others, first under her family's expectations, then under Raymond's legacy, and finally under the burden of power itself. But power, she realized, wasn't about control. It wasn't about fear or wealth or dominance. True power was freedom. And for the first time in her life, she was truly free. She didn't need to prove herself anymore. She didn't need to fight for acceptance. She had built something incredible, not just from Raymond's fortune, but from her own strength, her own vision. She looked around at everything she had created and knew it was time to choose what came next. She could stay, continue ruling the empire she had built, or she could walk away, start something new on her own terms. For the first time, she had the luxury of choice, and that was the greatest victory of all. Aisha stood at the edge of everything she had ever known, staring into the unknown. For the first time in her life, she wasn't making a decision out of survival. She wasn't choosing out of fear, obligation, or the expectations of others. Every battle she had fought, every tear she had shed, had led her to this moment, where she finally had the power to decide what she wanted. She had reclaimed Raymond's empire and shaped it into something greater than he had ever envisioned. She had faced enemies who wanted to see her fail and had emerged victorious. She had learned what it meant to stand alone, to build her own strength, and to command her own future. But one question remained unanswered. Did she want to share that future with someone else? Rayan had been by her side through it all. He had never tried to control her, never asked her to be anything other than the woman she had become. He had watched her rise, supporting her without ever expecting anything in return. And yet, love was a choice. She had once believed love was a weakness, a chain that could be used to hold her down. But maybe love, real love, wasn't about losing herself. Maybe it was about finding someone who understood her, who let her be free while standing beside her. Rayan had never pressured her for an answer. Even now, as they stood together on the balcony of her estate, looking out at the world she had fought for, He only watched her with quiet patience. "You don't owe me anything, Aisha," he said softly. "You've already given everything to this world. You only owe yourself happiness." Happiness. It was such a simple word, yet it held so much weight. She turned to face him, searching for doubt, for expectation. But there was none. He wasn't asking her to choose him. He was asking her to choose herself. For so long, she had let life decide for her. Now she had to decide for herself. A future with Rayan. A future alone. Two different paths, both filled with possibilities. And then, with steady confidence, she made her choice. She stepped forward, her heart lighter than it had ever been, because no matter what path she took, she knew one thing for certain. She was no longer the girl who had once cried on her wedding night. She was Aisha, and this time she was choosing her future. The end